Today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics in the entire world, and that is shadow work. I was introduced to this concept not too long ago, maybe three years ago at this point, and I have all my years mixed up. I can't recollect time for the life of me, but 2021, and it was revolutionary. So I'm going to quickly define shadow work for you. I'm going to tell you about why it's important and why, if you don't know about it, it will be the tool that helps you unlock different parts of who you are. If you are struggling to bring something into fruition, if you're trying to manifest something, this tool will help you identify why you're not getting it. And then, obviously, there are some historical context as well that I would like to bring in. So this will be a fun one. Shadow work is unveiling the darker aspects of who you are and bringing them to light. Like as if when you walk into a dark room and you shine a flashlight into that room, it's almost like you're uncovering what is hidden in your subconscious mind. We've talked about this a few times in my videos, that the subconscious mind is like 90 to 95% of our brain, and our conscious brain is only 5 to 10%. And that is a lot of brain that we don't know about. And shadow work kind of helps us understand what is the background noise occurring in your brain. What are some of the hidden beliefs that we have that end up manifesting our reality? Now, quick little tangent on manifesting your reality. What that means is that we are manifesting all the time. Our dominant thought process plays out all the time. So if I'm dominantly thinking that my life is beautiful and I'm super grateful for everything, that is the lens or the perception that I have all the time, dominantly. That doesn't mean that we don't have bad days, but it's the dominant thought process. And I'm oversimplifying this because oftentimes dominant thought processes can vary from section of life to section of life. So you might have like a really strong perception of your career, but you might not have dominant favorable thought processes about your love life. You might not have dominant favorable thought processes about your friends, but you might really thrive in money or your family life. And so we kind of have to separate out the segments of life and take a look at the belief systems that are underlying. Now, how do you do that? The biggest place that I would turn to is inner child healing. Now, I have been really invested in inner child healing for the last month or so. There's been a lot of people in my life that have come forward and said, yeah, you need to focus on inner child healing. But it's also been in my intuition and in my worldview for the past maybe month and a half, 2 months or something. And to me, inner child healing is taking a look at my belief systems today and tracing it back to when it was formed. So for example, if there are insecurities in, I'm going to use my love life as an example. I work with people all the time that, talk to me about their belief systems. And since I run healing sessions and things like that, and I have for a few years, there are a lot of people that come to me and say, I'm never chosen. I'm never the girl that gets picked. I'm never the girl that gets to be with the guy that they want to be with. I'm always the one that's left alone. Or even in friends, right? I'm always the one that doesn't get chosen. I'm always the one that gets left behind. I'm never accepted. I'm not loved. And a lot of times those core beliefs can stem from our childhood. And not all the time. Sometimes it can happen in adolescence. Sometimes it can happen in, high school, college. But a lot of times our formative life from 0 to 7 years old has a lot of, deep and hidden subconscious beliefs that sort of compound over time. So, for example, if you were somebody who was surrounded by a lack of money in your childhood, then potentially you could have some sort of scarcity mindset, like you might panic every time that you open up your bank account, even though you've been making money for X amount of years. You might be very frugal, but not in the healthiest way. And so it's a balancing act. And sometimes we have to put in the extra work to help rewire our brain so that we can start thinking more favorably. Now, a lot of these sort of belief systems can come to light when you are actively desiring something. let's say you want to get married, or let's say that you want a new job, or you want to change in your career completely, or let's say you want to activate your creative passions, or mid-20s is hard, I want to find people that are my people. Like if you have any of those desires, you can write them out on the top of the page, and then I would start listing out all the reasons why you don't think you have that. So I'm not getting married, for example, because I'm not loved, or I'm not good looking, or I have, this limitation. And it helps you pinpoint what your insecurities are. You probably already know what your insecurities are, but it helps to have them written on paper. You can trace back and say, oh, I remember a time where I thought this about me, or when I first started thinking this about me, or I was bullied in high school, or, I had a really toxic relationship in high school or college or whatever, and that's why I believe the way that I believe. And it helps us uncover, again, the shadowy aspects of our brain and bring them to light. We can do shadow work all the time. It's not only when we're desiring something. We are always transforming and changing and becoming the best version of ourselves. And it's so critical if you are somebody who claims this life as their healing journey, which I believe that the healing journey and life are synonymous. I think it's the same thing. I think that we are constantly allowing for our soul to evolve, but oftentimes we are not able to access who we really are because our brain clouds that information. And it's our job in this lifetime to take accountability of our belief systems. And not only that, but just to kind of live a healthier, happier life. Like the reason why we're not super happy all the time, or that we're bound by suffering all the time, is because, and when I say suffering, we're bound by negative suffering. So pain, jealousy, anger, a lot of the gunas, like the Tamo gunam especially, like we are bound by these gunas because we are just sort of, there's a lot of limiting factors to why we believe the way we believe. And I'm speaking so broadly, and I'm trying to provide examples as I go along, but it really does pertain to you and your life and how you see your life. One of the best things that we can do, if you are actively desiring something right now, write that on the top of the page and then list out all the reasons why you believe that you don't have it. If you are not actively desiring something in your life right now, you can ask yourself, what are the areas of life that you want to see changed? And it can be as simple as, I want to go to the gym more, or I want to change my habits. I think a mistake that a lot of people make is that they look to change their habits. Like, tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to have my green juice, and then I'm going to start work and I'm going to be great. Like, it's like we have all these like to-do lists, but what we forget is like we have to understand why we haven't done that thus far. Do you believe that you're an unproductive person? Do you believe that you're lazy? Do you believe that you subscribe to inaction? Do you feel passive in your life? Do you want to be in the driver's seat, but you don't know how? It's like these little things where it's like, that is what's preventing you potentially from living the life that you want. So we have to get really granular with this. But if you've never heard of shadow work before and you don't know where to begin, start with the desire, like I said, and do that exercise, or write down your insecurities. So being in the practice of shadow work is so, so important. I think I'm a little bit extra, and I will have like a separate notebook for my light work, which is like my manifesting, my dreams, my goals, and sort of like the places in my life that I want to expand. And then I have another notebook that helps me uncover my shadow self. So it's like my daily thoughts, my brain dumps, as I call them, my specific shadow prompts. And I like that separation because it helps me compartmentalize a little bit better, because I'm not the best at it, or I wasn't the best at it. But this practice has allowed me to be pretty good at it. It's so funny. I watched one of my videos from like 2-3 years ago, and she was saying a lot of stuff about how she couldn't compartmentalize and like how this journal practice helped her. And it was just funny to see like how much things have changed from the last few years. Like if you scroll down to like my very first video, I just think it's kind of funny like how much my life has changed. And I credit that entirely to shadow work and actively participating in my life. Like I'm no longer a passenger in my life. I take an active role. I don't let things just happen to me. I don't let my belief systems just fester and sit. If there's a series of unfavorable thought patterns, I correct it. And while I don't see change overnight, I am not, I don't even like to affirm this, but it's my current reality right now. But it's like, I don't really see overnight success. I'm somebody who puts in the work brick by brick. And honestly, I like that about myself. I like that I have to be a very hardworking person. And I'm trying to move towards a reality where things come to me very easily and I'm able to access life and creativity with ease. But right now, in this very moment, I feel like I have to work very hard for the things that I want. I feel like I have to lay down the foundation and do everything brick by brick. Like, I've never been like a social media star, with overnight success, except for that one video that you guys did for me, the order of the books. But now we're getting off tangent. Anyway, do you see how that just played out? I laid out for you something that I wanted. Like, I want to access creativity with ease. I told you why I feel like I can't get it. It's because my whole life I was told, you are a very hardworking person, Janani. And I always took that as like a massive compliment, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm hardworking. Like, that's every oldest daughter's in an Indian family's dream to be called that. It was something that I stuck to and I identified with it. And so in my brain, it stored as Janani is a hardworking person. I am hardworking. And it manifested in different ways where I tend to have to work hard for everything that I want. I think that in this situation, like, it's my responsibility to take accountability of my belief systems and change the way that I look at my life. So instead, I've been affirming I am able to access creativity with ease. And I think it's actually playing out because I pulled up my camera 2 days in a row. I feel really good about the content that I'm posting. I feel like I'm very in the mode of it. And I'm constantly thinking about you guys, which is something that, it doesn't come unless you practice making YouTube videos. Like, this is just an example. If you're like an aspiring YouTuber, which, if you are, that it's really about like having the mindset of like, okay, this is a video that I can film, or I'm really passionate about this subject, so I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to have the tools accessible to me, because there are so many times where I've like sit down in front of the camera and been like, what do I even say? What is there to say? And, that blockage, or like writing blocks, or like any of those creative blocks that we all experience if you're a creative as well, can be really frustrating, and moving through them can feel like a mountain. So I tend to just say in those moments, like, I accept this as my season of life. If a video idea doesn't come to me, that's okay. And there'll be a season where I'll have a lot of video ideas. And then when the ideas are there and when I'm in that creative flow, I tend to say, I really am grateful that I'm in this creative flow, because what you focus on expands. And if you put your focus on the things that you want rather than what you don't want, then that part of your life becomes bigger. Obviously, right? Because we're training our lens, we're training our perspective. And when we can shift our perspective to what we want instead of what we don't want, because oftentimes our perspective is dominantly in what we don't want to experience, we're able to actually seize our life a little bit more. Like, I had a lot of friends in my life who would sort of be able to rattle off what they didn't want, but when asked, so what do you want instead? They would say, I don't know. I always thought, like, how could you not know what you wanted? Until I came upon a situation where I was in the same boat, where I knew what I didn't want, but I couldn't pinpoint what I wanted. So then I went to my notebook and I said, why am I experiencing these blockages? And it came up, because you don't deserve to be successful. And I would tell myself this all the time without even really realizing it. But that's why shadow work is so helpful, because you end up seeing like, oh, I didn't even realize I felt that way about myself. And then you're able to kind of affirm and go deeper down and start to really pinpoint, okay, let me shift this thought process to a more favorable circumstance. So another practice that can be really helpful is meditation. And I think it's kind of funny coming off of my Jnana Yoga video yesterday, but I have found a lot of success in meditation when it comes to actually relinquishing my thought processes. So I will write down my list. I'll have my journal in hand. I'll go sit down and meditate, and I will shift my thoughts. I've made a lot of videos about the practice of letting go. This is where that's really applicable. I will focus on a thought that makes me really uncomfortable, and I will sit in the emotions of it and allow myself to completely process that. We often repress and suppress our emotions, And our subconscious mind really tracks down emotions more than it tracks down like just regular thought. So if you're affirming for something, for example, if you don't have emotion backing that affirmation, sometimes it's harder for the brain to connect the experience together and start to really believe in the affirmation. Like if you spent your whole life believing that you were not good enough at finding the love of your life, or you were not good in relationships, or you were a bad student, like if you firmly believed that for the vast majority of your life, if I told you, affirm, I'm a good student, I am lucky in love, I am financially abundant, you wouldn't believe that affirmation at first. But if you said it enough times and tacked on an emotion with it, like with gratitude, like the feeling of gratitude, the feeling of love, if you tacked that feeling with the words, it would connect in your brain a lot better, and you'll start to believe it as time goes on. And so our brain tracks all of our emotions and links them to certain circumstances. And in meditation, when we recollect a sentence or a situation or, a thought that you're trying to reprogram, and you allow for that emotion to surface, you're really unleashing what was suppressed. That will grant you a lot more acceptance of varying emotions that we as human beings feel. It's not wrong to feel anger or jealousy or pain. Don't let any spiritual person tell you that it's wrong to feel the varying emotions that we all have. It's okay to feel anger. It's okay to be jealous. It's okay to feel that. But it's also healthy and beneficial to allow for those emotions to exist and pass, because the practice of non-judgment starts with you. And I think one of the best things that we can do for ourselves is allow for the emotion to rise, shine a light on the darkness that is our mind, and sit with it. It will grant you peace because you won't be afraid of emotion at that point. Sometimes we end up feeling really angry at something, and then we end up feeling shameful for feeling angry. So then you're tacking on a lot of emotions, and that's what I kind of call compounding emotions. And compounding emotions are much more difficult to tackle than just the individual emotion itself. And sometimes it can be hard enough to just deal with the emotion at hand that we don't need to add shame, regret, and blame to it. So let's just deal with the individual emotion by allowing it to rise and by sitting with it. Another tool you can use is analyzing your chart, your astrology chart, and looking at where your 12th house is. That is sort of like the loss to yourself. Like the 12th house represents the loss to you. So I look at my 8th house and my 12th house, and I see, okay, what are some characteristics of this 8th house, of this 12th house that I can incorporate into my practice. So for example, if you were like a Scorpio 8th house, you might feel like, okay, what are aspects of my life that I'm constantly trying to transform? What are some places in my life where I'm not transforming? Because Scorpio sort of rules like the house of transformation and death and all of that. Just to give you an idea of what to journal about, and then you can go deeper into that. So you can literally just Google this. You would Google your chart first. Personally, I really only believe in Vedic astrology, and then you can see what that 8th house is, and then look up that sign and say, what are some good shadow work prompts for a Pisces, for an Aries, for a Taurus? And ChatGPT is a good tool for that. So you can look that up. That might be able to give you some ideas on what to journal about. There was a time in my life where I was journaling about like social media or something or the other, and it was like, it basically boiled down to me not feeling like I was a very responsible person in money. And it was really interesting because that was not something that I was directly journaling about, but it came up. And I thought, okay, there's this like fundamental belief system in me that said that I was not a responsible person when it came to money. And it sort of prevented me from feeling like I deserved to make money. And when, confronted with growth or when confronted with success, I would sort of reject it and say, I don't deserve this success. Or I would sort of like push the success away, or I would not take opportunities that would land me in a successful position. In this case, I'm talking about success financially. I personally don't believe that success can be equated to finances. I believe success is waking up every day, feeling happy and feeling content. And that aside, I then came to the resolve that I'm a responsible person when it comes to my finances. And actually, my finances ended up doing so much better. I was saving a lot more money, and my actions were a lot more aligned to the reality that I wanted to live in, where I felt really safe with money. I felt like I could acquire the financial abundance that I was looking for, and I felt secure. That really shifted the way that I looked at money entirely, and it shifted the way that I looked at transactional means completely. And now the value that I place in money is high because I respect it. I respect money. I don't take advantage of money. I think of money as my friend. I think of money as my companion. And I speak good words to my finances rather than being afraid of it. And a lot of times we can feel subconsciously afraid. Remember that the entirety of this video is about your subconscious mind. So you might be in conscious mind rejecting some of the things that I'm saying, but remember that subconsciously a lot of these patterns are playing out, and it's our responsibility to uncover them. But it's not difficult because you can affirm that you confront your shadow with ease. You can affirm that shadow work is easy for you. God has allowed you to surrender a lot more into my shadow, and that will help you throughout this process. Now, the fun historical references here, Arjuna is also experiencing a lot of shadows. He feels doubtful, fearful, attached, and through divine intervention, he is then able to obtain clarity. So a soul so progressed in their journey like Arjuna, if he is experiencing doubt, shame, and fear, we probably are as well. And I think through the divine intervention, through confronting it, through not running away from your doubt, fear, and shame, and looking at it with a flashlight is what allows you to actually overcome and transmute that energy. I think that this is a journey. You're not going to necessarily see success overnight, nor should you expect that. Just because you do these exercises doesn't mean that the next day you're going to wake up a completely transformed person. You may, but that's not our experience as a whole. And the uncovering of a shadow takes patience and it takes kindness. You have to be nice to yourself as you go through this. You cannot be belittling yourself and saying, I can't believe I'm still going through hardship. I can't believe I still have to feel these emotions. I can't believe I hate myself so much. Why is this even happening to me? You can't put yourself in victim mode. That's what we're trying to rise from. So try not to double down on that and try to overcome your fear and your anxiety with love and clarity. Ravana was unable to confront his pride and his desires, and he was not able to relinquish that attachment. And though Ravana is a very extreme example, I think it's important to look at history so that we don't repeat that for ourselves. And it's important to analyze these historical texts so that we can understand what we're supposed to gain from it, because it's definitely here for a reason. Ram and Ravana are the pinnacle of good and evil. While we might not be able to emulate the characteristics of God, we do have this sattva guna. And leaning into the sattva guna and sort of balancing your tamoguna and rajoguna with that is very, very important. A lot of our society is sort of steeped in tamogunam, especially with social media, this inaction, this passive nature to the world, depression, mental health issues. They are permeating all of our society. Similarly, with our rajogunam on social media, angrily typing out messages. Sometimes I see them in the comments here. We really should not be steeped in anger in that way. Rather, we can use our rajogunam to push us forward towards action. Take that fiery energy within you that you have about anger and push it towards the things that you actually want to do and push it towards action. So it's all a balancing act of your gunas, but the more sattva guna activities that you can do, the better. And confronting your shadows is definitely one of them because you are taking an active role in your healing journey. This is one of my favorite topics of all time because it truly and honestly changed the course of my life. Once I started to be more comfortable with my shadow self, I started to love her a lot more. I started to appreciate her a lot more. And I started giving her credit. She brought me this far. Her and the light self brought me this far. So it's important for me to honor all of the past versions of me in this lifetime so that I can uncover even more. Like, the more I understand about this body in this lifetime, I believe that the more I can understand about my past life, and the more I can understand my soul, and the more I can understand about Bhagavan. Only when we peel back the layers of our ego and we're able to actually understand our brain and understand that every single thing that we have right now is based on our perception, which is literally a algorithm in our brain mixed with beliefs and experiences and knowledge, we can understand that each person's perception is so different, and the way that I look at something is entirely different from how you look at something, and that belief systems are just so fragile. So if they don't serve you, get rid of them, transmute them, and feel empowered to do so, because life is in your hands. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, let me know if you have questions, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.